Hey people, it's Nias talking. Now, I just want to quickly cover this story, which is about Kofi Annan, who was the former UN Secretary General and who has died. So, he was a Ghanaian who served as Secretary General between 1997 and 2006, who has died at age 80. The Ghanaian was the seventh Secretary General and served for two terms between 1997 and 2006. He was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for his humanitarian work jointly with the UN as an organization in 2001. He died in hospital in Mourns, Switzerland, in the early hours of Saturday with his wife Nane and their three children, Amma, Kojo, and Nina. He had retired to Geneva and later lived in a Swiss village. Annan's foundation issued a statement on his Twitter account on Saturday to describe him as a global statesman and deeply committed internationalist who fought throughout his life for a fairer and more peaceful world. Let me just read the statement. It is with immense sadness that the Annan family and the Kofi Annan Foundation announced that Kofi Annan, former Secretary General of the United Nations and Nobel Peace Laureate, passed away peacefully on Saturday, 18th of August, after a short illness. His wife Nane and their children Amma, Koja, and Nina were by his side during his last days. Kofi Annan was a global statesman. Oh, it's all repeating the same thing. Let's go a bit down. Kofi Annan was a son of Ghana and felt a special responsibility towards Africa. He was partly committed to African development and deeply engaged in many initiatives, including his chairmanship of the Africa Progress Panel and his early leadership of the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa, AGRA. Wherever there was suffering or need, he reached out and touched many people with his deep compassion and empathy. He selflessly placed others first, radiating genuine kindness, warmth, and brilliance in all he did. He will greatly be missed by so many around the world, as well as his staff of the foundation and as well as his many former colleagues in the United Nations system. He will remain in our hearts forever. The family kindly requests privacy at this time of mourning. Arrangement to celebrate his remarkable life will be announced later. This is from his... Oh, that's the same thing again. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, whom Annan appointed to lead his refugee agency, said, "In many ways, Kofi Annan was the United Nations. He rose through the ranks to lead the organization into the millennium with matchless dignity and determination." The former UK Prime Minister, Tony Blair, said on Twitter that he was shocked and distressed by Annan's death. He was a good friend with whom I saw only a few weeks ago. Kofi Annan was a great diplomat, true statesman, and a wonderful colleague who was widely respected and will be greatly missed. My deepest sympathy to Nane and his family. Theresa May, the UK Prime Minister, said on Twitter, "Sad to hear the death of Kofi Annan, a great leader and reformer of the UN. He made a huge contribution to making the world he has left a better place than the one he was born into. My thoughts and condolences with his family." Jeremy Corbyn, the opposition leader. Kofi Annan dedicated his life to building a more just and peaceful world. His efforts in support of conflict resolution and human rights will be remembered. He looked for a peaceful path when others looked for war. My thoughts are with his family and loved ones. The Russian President Vladimir Putin hailed Annan's wisdom and courage, and the German Chancellor Angela Merkel said he was an exceptional statesman in the service of the global community. Annan was chair of the Elders, an independent group of global leaders working for peace and human rights, founded by Nelson Mandela. Gro Harlem Brundtland, the former Prime Minister of Norway and the body's deputy chair, said she and her colleagues were devastated by Annan's death. Kofi was a strong and inspiring presence to us all, and the Elders would not be where he was today without his leadership. Throughout his life, Kofi worked unceasingly to improve the lives of millions of people around the world. Kumi Naidu, Amnesty International Secretary General, said the world had lost a great leader. His dedication and drive for a more peaceful and just world, his lifelong championing of human rights, and the dignity and grace which he led will be sorely missed in a world which needs these characteristics more than ever. A short biography in this news article. Born in Kumasi, Ghana on 8th of April 1938, Annan joined the UN system in 1962 as administrative officer with the World Health Organization in Geneva. He later served with the Economic Commission for Africa in Addis Ababa, the UN Emergency Force in Ismailia, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees in Geneva, and his several senior posts at his headquarters in New York. Before becoming Secretary General, he was under Secretary General for Peacekeeping and also served as a special representative of the Secretary General to the former Yugoslavia between 1995 and 1996. The UN peacekeeping operation faced two of its most criticized incidents under Annan's leadership for its conduct during the Rwandan genocide in 1994 and the massacre in the Bosnian town of Srebrenica in July 1995. In both cases, the UN had deployed troops under Annan's command, but they failed to save the lives of the civilians they were mandated to protect. After becoming Secretary General, he ordered UN reports on both debacles that were highly critical of his management. Okay, I want to say something. Look, the UN troops are not allowed to intervene. That's the whole point of them being there. They are peacekeepers. You see, in many of these situations, they're only there as a symbol. They're not allowed to fire at either side. So when, Ratko Mladic and his Bosnian Serb forces said, we're going to storm the town, and nobody was there, there were no American forces intervening, NATO, to stop them, there was nothing the UN peacekeepers could do because they're not legally allowed to do anything. So putting the blame on him is very wrong and unfair. And I really don't like that they're bringing this in, when it wasn't his responsibility or within the range of his power to stop it. All right, let's go on. His tenure as Secretary General, which began 6 years after the collapse of the Soviet Union, and also covered the September 11th, 2001 attacks and subsequent US-led war against Iraq, was one of the UN's most turbulent periods since its founding in 1945. His tenure at the UN was tarnished by a 2005 investigation of Annan and his son over the oil for food scandals, seen by some as retribution for his condemnation of the 2003 US-led invasion of Iraq as illegal. An inquiry cleared Annan of any serious wrongdoing, but found ethical and management lapses linked to his son's ties with a sister company that won lucrative contracts in the oil food scheme. Annan later admitted that the scandal had sorely tested his mettle, not only as a Secretary General, but as a father. Annan used his final speech as Secretary General in December 2006 to deliver a parting shot at the administration of George W. Bush, accusing the U.S. of committing human rights abuses in the names of fighting terrorism. When power, especially military forces, used, the world will consider it legitimate only when convinced that it is being used for the right purpose. For broadly shared aims in accordance with broadly accepted norms, he said. He acknowledged more recently the UN still had its faults. The UN can be improved, it is not perfect, but if it didn't exist, you would have to create it. He told the BBC in an interview for his 80th birthday in April, I am a stubborn optimist. I was born an optimist and I'll remain an optimist. Okay, first off, I just want to end a couple of things. I think it's very, very bad taste that they brought up these scandals. That even when they were going on, they were not big. I never heard of them. Like this oil for food. There's far more big things like Dick Cheney and Halliburton. Nobody drags that up, even though that was a very, very serious breach of the ethics of his office as vice president, and he made a lot of money off that, and soldiers suffered as a result. Nobody brought that up. Nobody brings it up even to this day. But now that he's dead, they want to smear him with whatever they can. I don't think it's right. As they said, they found him, they absolved him of any serious wrongdoing, yet they still want to bring it up. Okay, now, as I said, from my own understanding of Kofi Annan, when I was watching the news back in the 2000s, early 2000s, he was very well respected. He was very dignified in an era, even today, where many world leaders were not dignified and made leading the world look like an embarrassment. And I was talking to one of the Ghanaians today, and Ghana was mourning him. He was very well respected. So I would just say, peace, Kofi Annan, rest in power, brother. Gone but not forgotten. Anyway, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.